My name is Gunner, and I play in a local Austin band called The Big Gun Show. Started this podcast to sit down with other songwriters, musicians, artists, and lovers of music to talk about their top 5 records that have inspired their musical tastes and their lives. Everyone has a reason why they picked their top 5, and quite often, they're different. Might be because they influence their lives or music. Might be because it takes them back to a memorable time in their lives. Heck, it might even be that they can describe a smell or a taste when they first heard it. Tonight I'm talking with Rosie Flores. She's a friend and she's my guitar teacher. She's won multiple Ameripolitan Awards as well as a Peabody Award for her narration of a documentary called Whole Lotta Shakin. She has an actual day named after her in Austin. It's on August 31st, and she was also inducted into the Austin Music Hall of Fame in 2007. She's even been on both Austin City Limits, Late Night with Conan and Obrien, and it's pretty awesome having one of your good friends as a hero. She also, in 2012, released Working Girls Guitar, and in 2019, she dropped her long-awaited blues album called Simple Case of the Blues. Please check them out. They are incredible. Have you heard about Campfire Gathering? Well, I'm going to be the camp counselor, the camp director, whatever you want to call me. It's an adult summer camp featuring killer music, food, and vibes. It's going to take place on Monday through Wednesday between the 2 South by Southwest weekends. In 2020, that's going to be March 16th, 17th, and 18th. It will take place at Camp Lucy in Dripping Springs, just 30 miles outside of Austin. Night 1 is going to feature a couple of shows and some dinner. Wake up the next day and choose between your favorite camp time activities. You want to do some yoga? How about archery, axe throwing, fishing, winery tour? Just take your pick. And when you're done with your activities, head over to the main hall and start seeing acts such as Ray Wiley Hubbard, Deer Tick, Delta Spirit, among other big names. There also is going to be some chapel sessions with Nikki Lane as the headliner, and woo, love me some Nikki Lane. We're going to be bringing in RVs and yurts, so you got places to stay. So head over to www.campfiregathering.com. Get your tickets, get your lodging. Let's get some fun going on there. It's going to be a blast. Now, let's get to the conversation. Close your eyes. You're on that desert island again. What 5 records do you have? There we go. All right, Rosie. Welcome to the My Top 5 Records podcast.
Good to be here, Gunner.
I'm a little bit surprised at your selections. I really thought with our connection with Keith that you would have a Stones album on there.
Well, if you would have given me 6 albums, that would have been perfect. And I'll have to say that I traded, I went over this all morning, and I kept saying, I don't know which Stones album. I could pick the first Stones album because that was the one I listened to constantly and learned how to play Keith licks to. But I wanted to really share my Linda Ronstadt side.
I hear you.
And so I kind of traded them out. I also had if I could have had 7, I would have had Gary Stewart, who's one of my favorite country singers, and I lived and breathed every single song on his record, not only because of his great voice, but of the great songwriting and guitar licks that were on the Gary Stewart album. And he became a friend of mine, and I feel really bad I couldn't put him on the top 5.
Well, okay, so what I see here is Abbey Road by the Beatles, Blood on the Tracks by Bob Dylan, Don't Cry Now by Linda Ronstadt, Shape of Things, and I could not find that one, so I couldn't listen to it. And then I think you wanted Are You Experienced?
Okay, Shapes of Things is not the title of the album.
Aha.
Jeff Beck, not Beck as in Silver Lake Beck.
I know that, but
okay.
I just put that on.
Yeah, it was called Truth. It's an album called Truth by Jeff Beck.
Well, we can talk about that in a second, but let's start with Abbey Road. Now, this doesn't surprise me at all because I know on your Girl Guitar album or Working Girls Guitar,
Working Girls Guitar,
that you covered a Beatles song.
Well, yeah, I mean, when I was young, when I was a teeny bopper, I fell in love with the Beatles, as did every girl my age. It was 1965, and it was exciting, and I was learning about my sexual feelings toward men, and rock stars and music. I mean, I had already been a singer since I was like 8.
I'm almost wanting to dive into the sexual feelings, but we can do that later.
Well, it was the first time I was like, oh my God, I have a crush on a rock star.
Which one?
George Harrison.
George. Okay, good.
Yeah. I just thought he was really cute. And I always really wished I was Patty Boyd, but I wasn't ever going to be Patty Boyd because I wasn't a blonde.
Right.
And he would have never gone for me, but then he ended up marrying a Hispanic woman anyway.
So talk to me about Abbey Road. Why is this one of your, what did this do to you?
It made me want to write songs and play guitar even more. And it made me feel, like when the first time I heard it, I almost wanted to cry. That's like kind of those songs got to the core of me and the melodies. And, people probably, you're surprised because you don't know how much I love. Like on this list, you might have been surprised because you don't know how much I'm into pop music.
Right.
So I love pop music. I love country music. I love the blues and I love jazz. And I didn't put any jazz on my top 5 because I was trying to put more up on my rock and roll side. My jazz thing is a whole other world, and that album's somewhere in the making right now. But this is all about the rock and roll Rosie that I thought you were more interested in.
That's not what I'm actually more interested in. What your top? What if you had to go to jail, or if you had to go to a desert island? What are these the 5 albums you would take?
God forbid! Don't put me in jail already. I haven't done anything.
I know, but I like saying jail better than desert island.
Desert island sounds a little sexier to me than jail.
So, would you say that Abbey Road is what inspired you to write songs?
I mean, all these guys, Bob Dylan, Blood on the Tracks, he was early. It kind of started when I started writing songs. I'll have to say that Dylan was my first songwriter that I aspired to write songs like, because I had just learned how to play guitar and I bought an acoustic guitar. It was a $40 guitar, but
How old were you?
My dad made me pay $10 a month to get it. And it took me 4 months to pay it off. It was an Aria nylon string acoustic. I ended up selling it, which I feel really sad about. There's a girl out there that owns it. I think she's still around. And so I started with kind of playing Bob Dylan songs because I could already sing. Right. I sang coming out of the womb. My dad used to record me when I was 7 and 8.
Nice.
There's a lot of those tapes still around. In fact, one's on Rockabilly Philly.
Oh, really?
It's the closing track. It's the bonus track.
I need to hear that.
And that's me, 7 years old.
All right. So
anyway,
with Blood on the Tracks and Dylan, I'd listen to that today. And, what I took away from that is it's definitely not a current album in the sense that the songs are 7 and 5. The songs are longer.
They're
than typical.
Really long songs. They're like 5 and 7 minute songs.
Yeah.
And it was all about just get out what you have to say. This is not. And you know what? Radio played his songs. Back in the FM radio days, they didn't care.
Right.
That's
Back
when
in
FM.
the day.
That's when FM radio
Today's
was happening.
It's different. But, and what I noticed about a lot of the songs is that, there was no real super hook on them other than kind of like the tagline.
It's just poetry.
I'd agree with that.
It's just poetry, and that's what songwriters really are, poets, And then it became, like, how to write a hit song. You have to have a verse and a verse and a bridge and another verse, and you have to have a hook line. And, I fell into that whole Nashville thing when I got signed, in 1986. And all of a sudden they were putting me with different songwriters that were getting hits on the radio. And I was like, there's a craft to it, And my early songs were more rambling, like Dylan. And they had, I think I always had kind of a hook lick. But like I had this one song I wrote that was the same chord changes through the whole song. Mm-hmm. And it's one of my favorite songs I've ever written. I need to bring it back. And it's called I Just Want to See You Again. But the thing about Dylan's Tangled Up in Blue, Simple Twist of Fate.
Great song.
Lily, Rosemary, and the Jack of Hearts, they just go on and on. It's poetic, and it's almost like rap music would be to the young kids now. Like that is how he spoke to me, is how like a rap artist would speak to my nephews now,
right.
you know.
Okay. The song I really like on that album was "If You See Her, Say Hello." That kind of gave me chills. That was a good one. I forget what there was like a doubled instrument part or where it was like, you know, it was like a steel and a slide at the same time. And it was
You like that one?
I dug that one for
Well,
sure.
you love country steel and stuff like that.
I do.
You are a country artist.
Thank you. Well, I consider myself more Keith Richards, but thank you. I'm rock and roller,
Well,
but
Keith is pretty country.
yeah, I agree.
He loved Graham Parsons.
He did.
He loved all that country stuff. He loves the blues for sure.
Well, that's the period of the Stones that I try to emulate right there. But yeah, so there's that. And now I want to talk about Linda Ronstadt. Actually, you know what? Before we talk about Linda Ronstadt, I want to talk about why Bob Dylan. You're saying it's the poetry, what he comes out and says and what he means. Because I can't get into Bob Dylan. I can't get into Townes Van Zandt. I'm trying to get into Chris Christopherson, and these are these legendary songwriters. I'm starting to understand Chris a little bit, but
Those three that you mentioned are so different from each other, though.
they are. But they're all known, and Guy Clark too. I've read his book. I'm still trying to understand and get into the mind of these songwriters, and I don't know if you have an insight into that, but if you do, I'd love to hear it.
Well, each one of those guys are uniquely different and have a way of saying something that is like a line that you've never heard before, you know, and, you know, to reach out there and try to say something that nobody else has said before, but to get something off your chest. I mean, those guys inspired the great Rodney Crowell. They inspired the great songwritings of Steve Earle and many women out there as well. And to listen to something that you go, whoa, I wouldn't have thought to say that, or in a melody hook. And I mean, if you listen long enough to take one artist at a time and sink your teeth into them, it'll hit you and you'll figure it out. You know, it's like one of those things where, you know, there's pop songs that have like really cute little hooks or even blues songs that keep coming around, you know. The thing I like about the blues and the Stones, the early Stones, that they were so simple.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it wasn't all complicated. Like, you didn't have to think real hard like a Guy Clark song or like a Townes song, you know. But you're looking at Bob Dylan. I mean, there's classes in college about we're going to spend this, you know, month on what this song means.
Right.
And, you know, and you listen to a Bob Dylan interview and he's like, I don't know what you're talking about. There's nothing deep about that. Or I didn't mean, you know, what do you mean I'm the spokesman of the generation? He's like, I'm just writing songs.
I was reading something about it where he denied that Blood on the Tracks was autobiographical, but when you asked his son, he was like, "Oh yeah, that's about my parents."
Yeah, I read that too. Actually, that Jacob Dylan said that's all about my parents' life. You know,
right.
That's probably true because who would know better than him?
Correct.
You know.
All right, so
I
in
think
the words,
every song I've ever written is autobiographical.
I can say that that's not the case for me.
Yeah,
I like to imagine a real bad boy and doing, you know, crazy like things. That's just the way I look at it. Like
right.
I try to make up things, and yes, there might be some autobiographical pieces, but not always.
You know, so you're telling me you're not really a bad boy?
Oh, don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. I mean, under Satan's mistletoe, you know, all those lyrics, you know.
I beg to differ. I'm sure that you are a bad boy.
Okay, I'll agree. But they're not autobiographical.
Okay.
Anyway, all right. Linda Ronstadt. In the words of Hank Williams Jr., I love Linda Ronstadt. Let's hear your take on Linda Ronstadt and why this album.
I used to lay on the floor. You know, because I was in a band starting at age 16, so I think by the time her record was out was when that particular Heart Like a Wheel was out. I was in my very early 20s. And I used to go down to this little place that Jack Temchin, the guy that wrote Peaceful Easy Feeling, him and this guy owned a little bar, and I used to go down there and play with my acoustic guitar, and that I just remember that being the era when I was really into emulating that Heart Like a Wheel record. And I would smoke pot, smoke a joint, I mean, and lay on the ground with the headphones, like the headphones I have on now,
Yeah.
and just lay on the rug and play that record, play that vinyl over and over again, and got so much joy of singing every line along with her. And so what I learned was not only great songwriting from the likes of John David Souther,
Yeah.
who ended up being her boyfriend and producer, and learning how to phrase. And you know what the main thing I learned, besides pitch, I've always had pretty good pitch, but I think practicing along with her, it was like a study.
Yeah.
And my pitch was really good. And but the main thing I learned from her was how to sing from the heart. Like some of her songs would like bring tears because she was singing like from experience, like if something really hurt her, you could hear the cry in her voice, and I learned a lot from that record. So I really wanted to put that out there more than the Stones, only because the Stones is there's a lot of covers of blues songs that were done by other people, and Keith is, he's a lot like Chuck Berry, and he learned from Chuck Berry. And so I listened to a lot of Chuck Berry when I was in the 1950s when I was a kid growing up.
Right.
And there was Chuck Berry and Elvis and Buddy Holly and all that kind of roots rock and roll, the beginnings of rock and roll, Elvis, all that. Of course, I was influenced by that as a little girl, but when I put a guitar in my hands, I was kind of past that. And I came back to rockabilly later, after the fact,
Okay. So
Did,
I
did
like
that
that.
answer your question, or did I
Yeah,
get it more
it did.
confused?
I mean, she's got this, and I'm really excited to see this new documentary that's about to come out. Have you heard of this?
What new documentary?
There's a new documentary coming out on Linda Ronstadt.
Oh, I've seen it.
Yeah.
It's already out.
I don't think it's out yet, is it?
Oh, yeah, I saw it.
Well, then
It's
that's
beautiful.
what I'm going to do later tonight, probably. Anyway, but I've always, again, Linda Ronstadt. I've been trying to get into her, and I think it's just one of those things that I just have to spend the time doing it.
I'll put a mixtape together for you.
Hey, awesome! I'd love that. Just do it on Spotify or whatever.
Okay.
But yeah, so I just think she's so cool, and she's sexy too. Come on, we got to talk about that, right?
Do we?
I think so.
Well, I want to be her. Except I don't want to be her now because she's really sick and she can't sing. But always wanted to be. I always wanted to have, like, I think of Linda Ronstadt as being the woman that had the most charmed life up till, when she got sick. But she had looks. She had talent. She was able to go to a record company and say, I'm going to do country, but now I'm going to do new wave rock and roll. Now I'm going to do a record in Spanish.
Yeah.
And now I'm going to sing jazz with the Nelson Riddle Orchestra. And that, I relate to that.
Yes, you do.
Because I have my jazz group, and I've done punk rock, I've done blues, I've done,
Rockabilly.
country and rockabilly. And I feel like, hey, if Linda Ronstadt can do whatever the fuck she wants to do, why can't I?
You know when I say that? Hell yeah. I think everybody should.
I think everybody should be able to express themselves without worrying about, I don't want people to get confused. It's like, hello, it's still me, look what I'm into now. Follow me up.
That's right.
Follow
I
me
think
up,
that's great.
kids.
Yeah, it's like every artist I would hope would be more experimental than they are. I think Wilco's a great example of that. I think there's a lot of bands that try to push the needle and do stuff, and a lot of times I love what they did at the beginning, and those are my favorite portions of it.
Mm-hmm.
But Quaker City Nighthawks is another band that I really admire, and they're starting to kind of push it as well. And so it's like you have to give those new efforts that they do a chance, and you have to listen to them, and you can't just listen to them like once or twice. You have to give it a good 5 to 10 listens before you can actually go, okay, I see where they're going.
I get it earlier than 10 listens. I usually don't spend, if I don't get it in the first like two, I usually give it 2 listens. If I don't get it, I'll have to move on to another record. I have a shorter thing on that because I have so many things I have to listen to.
Right.
It's just like, I don't have enough time. But I know what you mean though. And God bless you for trying and, giving everybody 10 listens.
If somebody says something, and it's not always 10 listens, but
yeah,
if somebody tells me, I'm obsessed with Townes Van Zandt, or I'm obsessed with so-and-so,
yeah,
and I don't get it, then that means I have to go figure out what album I want to listen to. Like Jeff Blankenhorn told me 2 of his top 5s were Axis Bold as Love by Jimi Hendrix and Townes Van Zandt live at the Old Quarter. And so
I had that record.
I listened to the whole thing.
I had that double album.
And then I went and looked to try to find if I could find a book about just of Townes' lyrics. I couldn't find that. I wanted a coffee table book that I could just read his lyrics.
I have a little book on him. Next time I see, I'll
Fair enough.
Bring it. But
speaking of that, let's roll to Jimi Hendrix.
Jimmy,
my wife's favorite guitar player in the world.
Nice.
Yes, it is true. She's a total blues woman.
Nice.
Why is Jimmy in your top 5?
Because he's the greatest guitar player that ever lived. His story, I've watched a lot of documentaries on him too. I saw him play live, and I was really young, and I never forgot him. And that was after I was a Jeff Beck freak. That was after I was a Yardbird freak and Page and Jeff Beck. But when I saw him live and heard those tones live in front of me, it just became more real. And I'd heard him on the radio, and I loved, Purple Haze and all that stuff. But, hey, Joe, where are you going with that gun in your hand?
Yeah.
And all that, like I'd heard it on the radio. And we used to play it so loud, me and my friends. And when I heard him live, it took me to a whole other amount of respect for him as a rock guitar idol, and I was in an all-girl band at that time called Penelope's Children, and I was like a teenager. And so as soon as I got back from that concert, I even actually, somewhere in my archives, I have a picture that I took of Jimi Hendrix on that concert, and he's playing guitar with his teeth.
Where was he playing? What club?
It was an outdoor concert in outside of Palm Springs, California. I think it was called the Newport Festival or something like that. I can't remember. I used to have the poster. I might have it tucked away in my archives. But there was a lot of cool 60s bands on there. It was like Country Joe and the Fish, and maybe the Jefferson Airplane were on it. It was that era. And I'm actually writing a book, and what happened to me because of staying late and watching Jimi Hendrix.
Hold on. Let's go back to this. You're writing a book right now.
Yeah, I'm writing a book called Wacky Truck Stop Candy and Road Stories. And there's a little story about what happened to me after I stayed to watch Jimi Hendrix.
So talk to me about the book. I don't even know about this.
You're kidding. I haven't told you about it?
No, you haven't.
Oh, it's called Wacky Truck Stop Candy because I've collected all of these candies from being on the road in the candy section.
Right.
Like the first thing I found was little washing machines called Dirty Laundry Candy. And the candy spins around like a washing machine. It says it spins. And you can spin the candy around, and then it's got the front loader, and you open it up, and the candy's shaped like socks and shirts and underwear. And they're like made of sweet tart.
That's great.
And so all of that candy's been photographed. So the chapters are named after the candy. So there's a Dirty Laundry Candy chapter. There's one called Worms and Dirt, Slug Suckers, and Bubblegum Guitars.
And so you have all of these candies, and you're saying there's going to be a chapter on each candy, and the chapter.
Well, some of them are like 3 candies because some candies like incorporate themselves into the stories. So a chapter, Dirty Laundry Candy is all by itself because I have so much dirty laundry to talk about.
I want to hear some of that. I want to read that chapter.
Yeah, that was one of the things I'm going to be doing when I go stay out at the desert for a month. It's trying to work on that book, trying to get it closer to finished.
That's awesome. I definitely, we don't have time today, but I need to hear more about the book.
All right, we'll do another
awesome.
podcast on the book.
You know what? That sounds great. We'll call it top one book. My top one book. So you mentioned earlier that Jeff Beck is kind of influential. Am I saying that right?
He's probably
or heroic.
Yeah, I mean, he's influenced me probably more. You know, I love the fluidity and the melodic kind of lines that he comes up with, and he's real precise and
super.
Like that one song, Because We Ended as Lovers. That song makes me want to cry when I hear him play that.
Okay.
And I want you to listen to it.
I will. And we can do it as soon as we're done here.
Yeah. And I've seen him play it live like 5 times, and it gets me every time. And there's just something about how Jeff Beck plays is like how I would want to sing.
Yes, I
He's
completely
like
understand that.
A voice, you know. And that, you know, when the record that I chose, Jeff Beck Truth, I saw him twice with Rod Stewart, and Ronnie Wood was his bass player when I was young. And me and my brother took the family station wagon. We said, we're going to go to the drive-in movie. And I was like 16 or something. And we instead drove up to the Hollywood. I can't remember if it was at the Palladium or my brother remembers. And we got in, and luckily you didn't have to be 21 to get into this hall. And you know what I did? I marched up on stage in the middle of his third song. I climbed the rafters, got right in front of him and took a picture, and then ran down because they were chasing me off. And I got away with it. You
rebel.
And I have that picture. I still have that picture framed, and I showed it to him. And I told him the story, you know. But I was so obsessed with him. And what am I talking about? I'm still obsessed with him. But, you know, I'm not dangerous to him or anything. But every time I get a chance to meet him and talk to him,
right.
I've met him twice already. So.
I just love the way that he doesn't need words in his songs. It's all, his guitar says it all.
Exactly.
And that's, I mean, when he covers songs, I mean, you're singing along because you know exactly. It's just that's
like when he does A Day in the Life by the Beatles.
Yes, that's exactly what I'm talking about.
You know, he doesn't have to. Doesn't need to be a singer to do it. But I love how he cherishes the blues stuff too, and I love those early days when Rod was really raw before he got pop and discovered, before he joined the Faces, when he was working with Jeff Beck on that Truth album. There's a guy that used to be in Wet Willie, Jimmy. I'm drawing a blank on his last name. Jimmy.
Doesn't matter.
Anyway, he's amazing. He's been touring with Jeff. The Jeff Beck fans will know who I'm talking about. And his voice, if you look at Wet Willie's, his early recordings, he's just such a badass singer.
Yeah.
And so Beck has had him on tour with him. And, he's always, he has women singing with him sometimes, too, that are mind-blowing. And they'll do live shows. And I also respect how Jeff has women musicians, bass players and cellos, players that are women in his bands. I think that's so cool.
I totally agree with that. I would love to have a female bassist in my band. I did it. We had 2 of them, but then they got stolen away to go do better things.
There's a lot of them out there. There should be more.
Okay,
more women need to play.
Rosie, I want to let everybody know where to find you on the web.
RosieFlores.com.
Go sign up for her email list. It's awesome. It's funny. It's silly. I love that about it because I try to do a email thing. I try to be funny, try to be silly. But what about
really?
So you do? You also play C Boys pretty much every Friday for happy hour.
Austin, Texas Sea Boys on Congress Avenue, 6:30 to 8:30. I play it every Friday except for when I'm out of town.
That's right.
Which I'm going to be touring to Europe this coming February, and again in September. I'm going to be on a cruise ship at the end of January.
Is that the Outlaw Country Cruise?
Outlaw Country Cruise for
Awesome.
my 5th year. I love Sirius Outlaw Country Radio. They've been so supportive.
Outlaw
And the blue.
Country.
Oh, you're being Mojo Nixon there. I love him too. I love all those guys, and I love the blues channels, and that's where I've gotten a lot of support on internet and satellite radio.
I think you have another gig in town, residency.
Yeah, my other residency is on Wednesday night upstairs, the Continental Gallery upstairs, right next to the Tattoo Parlor, right next to the Continental Club.
Correct.
And that's my Blue Moon Jazz Quartet. And I do not play any guitar on that. I just play music with my voice.
How good does that feel? I
it's
love
fun.
it. I love it when I can put my guitar down on stage and let everybody else do everything.
I mean, if I was really good at jazz guitar, and I will be someday because I'm studying it. I don't know if I will ever be really good, but I might be good enough. Let's put it like that, because I'm studying it. Then I can, just play some jazz chords, behind.
Along with it, yeah. But
just, to kind of accompany myself. But right now, if I did that, I would take away from
Jim Stringer, and I mean,
no. That's not what I'm trying to say. That when you sing, you have to put all your mind and heart and soul into melody as a singer. And if I'm distracted with playing, do I have my fingers on the right notes? You know what I mean? It has to come all the way from your heart and soul into the voice, because it's improvisation. So you can't be distracted with playing rhythm.
I like the way what you're saying, because
do you know what I mean?
I do, because that's the feeling I get when I do drop my guitar, that now I can be a rock and roll singer. Mm-hmm. Right? So now I can concentrate just on one thing and not have to concentrate on two. And so that's just for me.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. But if I had the guitar in my hand, I just would sing, and then as soon as somebody was taking their solo, then I could back them on.
Yeah.
Then I could be a rhythm guitar player for them. That's how I would handle it.
There you go.
That's what I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, and you play a lot of other shows around the country, flying out every weekend, it seems like. I don't get to see you very often.
Well, I had a really busy November, and I'm just trying to push Simple Case of the Blues. That's my latest record, came out last February.
Which is incredible, by the way.
Well,
I love that album.
It's gotten a lot of praise.
As it should have.
Thank God. Or thank y'all.
I love that album. I think that you're doing awesome things. I'm so happy for you, Rosie. I just think I think you're getting to a point in your life where now you're kind of in that groove. You know what you're doing. So
yeah, I'm not playing around anymore.
Don't play around. What's the point?
Yeah, I don't have to I'm not experimenting. I know where I'm going.
But you're at a place right now where you're, now you've done a lot of stuff, and now you've got another goal. You're looking at that jazz thing, and I get it, and I totally admire that.
Well, that's part of who I am. I mean, a lot of people don't know. I mean, just because they've heard of me as my first signing onto the radio and the music scene was through Warner Brothers Nashville Country, even though I was signed out of L.A.,
Yep.
But they don't know that I grew up listening to Ella Fitzgerald and Frank Sinatra and Nat King Cole, that was the first music I ever sang, and that was the first music I ever recorded as a 7 and 8 year old. Nobody knows that. So for me to come back and do that, it didn't come out of nowhere. They didn't know that I grew up in the 1950s singing along with Elvis and Buddy Holly and Jerry Lee. And that was when this other stuff we used to record on my dad's 2-track. So all those beginnings where you're a kid. I'm sure you tell me who you started out with when you were 7, because that's part of who you are.
Agreed.
And you'll never lose that.
That is a different conversation altogether. And then actually, I'm going to challenge you. I want you to pick your top 5 albums of all times. You got to take rock and roll out of it. You got to say, these are the top 5 records that I would take to my grave. That's what I want to challenge you, and we can do another podcast on it.
Well, I mean, it's so hard. It's like out of 200 songs I've written, which are your top 5 favorite? Or, I mean, there's so many bands and music that has influenced me. Like when you called me up this morning and said to pick that, I was really upset. I was like, damn it.
It is.
I was like,
everybody has a challenge because you get to like 3 and you're like, okay, okay, I think this is 4. Okay, but 5, I've got like 10 that I want for 5.
Yeah, because
everybody has the same challenge.
I kept crossing names and albums out. I was like trying to like whittle it down. And I was like, damn it, why didn't you ask me like a month ago? Which you might have.
I did,
but you didn't like challenge me. You were just like, we're gonna do this, and I'm gonna ask you for top 5 albums. I'm like, okay, and I didn't.
You didn't.
I've just been busy.
It's hard.
I've been busy, man.
Anyway, listen, everybody out there, please, rosieflores.com. What are you on Facebook?
I think I'm not sure.
Search Rosie Flores, and I'll see your what and you've got
the Rosie Flores, maybe. I'm not sure.
That might be Instagram, but you're on Instagram. You're on Facebook.
I don't know. I got my friends helping me take care of all that stuff.
Hey, man, that's the best way to do it.
Like I said, I don't have time, but I do. I will post now and then, and I might even post tomorrow because I have 3 days off. Of course, I should be unpacking, and trying to move into my new place, but.
Well, move into your new place. Get rid of all that mold, all that crap.
No, I'm not going back to the mold house.
I know, but I'm saying leave that behind.
Oh, I did. I haven't been there for 6 months.
Good for you.
Yeah.
All right.
This is going to be my new beginning. Okay, Gunnar?
I'm ready.
This is 2020 is a brand new Rosie.
Wow.
New home, new car.
Sexier dresser. I don't know if that can happen.
Sexier dresser?
Are you going to keep the Keith haircut? You going to still keep cutting your own hair?
Yeah. But.
Because I love that.
Yeah. Gunnar he's always pushing me to have my Keith Joan Jett look, which I've gotten more compliments on my hair in the last week or 2 weeks than ever.
That's right.
So it must be working for me.
It is. Rosie, thank you so much for coming out today and talking to me about your top 5 albums. And we're going to do this again, and I'm challenging you.
You want a different 5?
No, I just want the real 5.
I don't know. Those are pretty real. You just wanted me to throw a jazz one in there, didn't you?
I want everything. I'm challenging you because it's hard. You're going to start thinking about
whatever album Billie Holiday recorded. I don't even know.
All right.
Every song she ever recorded is my top 5 favorite songs.
Right. All right, guys. Thanks a lot for listening. We will talk to you next time.
Bye,
Adios. How awesome is Rosie? I said it earlier, but she has a day named after her, Rosie Flores Day. She has had an incredible career in music. She's even won a Peabody Award. It's insane. Anyway, if you got the gumption, head over to thebiggunshow.com. That's thebiggunshow.com and check out what my band is up to these days. You can also catch us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, all of those with a handle of The Big Gun Show Band. The Big Gun Show Band. I'll be back in 2 weeks. Then every other week after that, close your eyes. You're back on the desert island again. What 5 records do you have? Until next time.